Okay, so the tool that I'm about to use is called Draw.io. So this is the website. I think you can also access it by entering diagrams.net. Okay, but that's what I'm used to, this URL, Draw.io. So again, it's an online tool. Everything you do in your browser. Seems to work well with Chrome. I'm pretty sure it works well with other browsers as well. Just one thing to keep in mind, it's not your file system. You're doing things in the cloud, so you need to save that file for your own storage, right? So you don't lose it anyway. It's not going to be saved in the cloud anyway. You need to save it to your device. So when you load that website, it will ask you either to create a new diagram or open an existing diagram, okay? When you open an existing diagram, it has to be a file on your computer. And I already have some files just to show you. So for this assignment, I created two diagrams. Figure 1 diagram, it has Draw.io extension, and then Figure 2 diagram that has Draw.io extension. So that's the extension. By the way, it's XML file basically. It just has a custom extension. So it's not an image. It's just like a collection of properties of your diagram, something like that, right? So you need to save those files to your computer. So let me show you both ways. So if I open existing diagram, I'll go here and I'll open, let's say, Figure 1. So this is my figure, right? If I want to create a new diagram, then I'll start with the new one. So I'll create a new diagram. Now, when you create a diagram, it has some templates. I guess it will save you time, so some elements will be already added. So try to experiment with those templates. I personally rarely use them unless I know exactly what I'm doing, right? So maybe try with the swim lane diagram template. I'll create a blank diagram for now, okay? So I'll create a blank diagram, and it asks you to save it somewhere. So let's say I'm gonna save it to my tutorial. So I'll call it tutorial diagram. Activity. So it immediately asks you to save it. So now you know where your file is, right? So it's in that folder. So you see, this is the diagram. Just don't forget to save it. Whenever you make any kind of change, go to File, Save, or File, Save As. Okay, just to, if you want to know precisely where it's being stored. Okay. By the way, it's a very powerful diagramming tool. You can create all kinds of diagrams. I mean, if you can think of a diagram, most likely there's a collection of elements that can be used to create that kind of diagram. For example, you can even do interior design using the tool. Like there are those collections where you have room outlines. You can add couches. Like that kind of from the top view. So you can decorate your room. You can plan your furniture layout. All kinds of things can be done there. Here you have a collection of general tools, something that people use often, right? So they're in this tab. Also, you should add the UML 2.5 collection of tools. Okay, so this is like a broad collection of elements that used for all kinds of diagrams, not just activity diagrams. So whatever UML has, it's reflected here. And I also suggest that you add those business processes elements here. Okay, BPMN elements. So sometimes you may want to use something that is not a part of that collection, so that should come in handy, right? How do you do it? Just go to More Shapes, and here you can select which ones you want to add or hide. Okay, so for example, I want to hide flowchart. So did you see where I clicked? I clicked here, More Shapes. So I don't want flowcharts. I do want UML 2.5 because that's what we're using in this class most of the time, because that's what the textbook is based on. And I also added that BPMN. So it's like business process. I forgot what MN stands for, but it's another similar technique. I think it's mentioned in your textbook as well. It's an alternative to UML, right? So maybe we're going to use some of the elements here. So I click here as well. And again, explore this collection. I mean, look, you can do like Citrix specific modeling. You can do something that is related to Amazon Web Services, Azure, Cisco, if you're creating diagrams. Even it has like a collection of elements for iOS, meaning iPhone mockups, interface mockups, all kinds of tools are available there. So feel free to explore it, like iOS here, to see what's available. So we're going to be using some of those collections here. So I click apply, and here we are. We have UML 2.5, and we have BPMN collection here. Okay. So let's start creating our diagram. I'll try to replicate something close to what we have here, or something along those lines. But I'm not going to like make a complete copy, right? I'll just show you how to access those elements. Generally speaking, it's not rocket science. I mean, if you're comfortable using PowerPoint or Microsoft Word, it should take you a few minutes to figure out how to use all those interface elements, okay? So let's start with a swimming pool. So sometimes you can quickly find it here, right, in this collection by scrolling it. If you cannot find it, if your collection is too broad, then try to search it here. So I know you can find something called pool. Okay, so it gives you some options. Remember, we use those swimming lanes. So we're going to go ahead and add this pool here. Okay, so this is our pool. By double clicking on those labels, you can change them. And I'm using Control Z to revert changes, just like you would in a Word environment. So for some reason I cannot click on this entire thing. Okay, so I managed to double click on it. So now let's change it to Murray Middle School Tiger Band Schedule. So that will be the name of the system. By the way, those are text options on the right, so you can increase font size, decrease font size. So that's the name of the entire pool, entire diagram. Okay. Just like you do in Microsoft Word, you can resize this. So you can click on the entire pool to make it bigger. Okay. You can add more space to your lanes a little bit. And also, this is where you add additional lanes. So here it has an option of adding, no, this is another one, adding another pool. You can delete lanes, right? So you can click here and delete it. Okay, so you click on that arrow to add an additional lane, right? It may take some time for you to click up. For some reason I have problems clicking it because the screen is small, clicking on the precise spot that I want to, right? So those are the three lanes. So the first lane will be called band lead. So this is the person in charge, like usually a music teacher responsible for managing the entire band. So here we're gonna have, based on our diagram, what? Parents. And the final actor is going to be digital calendar. Okay. So those are our lanes. So let's add a starting node. It's going to be part of that UML. In our case, I can quickly find it. So this is our initial node, right? This junction, it's a part of DFD diagram, so they look the same. So I guess it won't make any difference. So this is our starting node. Okay. Now we need to add an activity. Remember that rectangle with rounded squares. Now here they have some activity elements like action. They call it action, right? As you can see, there is some discrepancy between how they call it in the textbook and how it's reflected here, and that seems to be normal. Nobody, for some reason, sticks. Maybe it's not precisely specified in UML standards. In my case, so you can use one of those shapes. That's fine as long as it approximately looks like what you have in the textbook. That's fine, right? What I like to do, I like to use those basic shapes, like rounded rectangle. So that's what I'll do. I'll just drop it here. Okay? Because it looks exactly the same, so I don't need to find an activity here. So that's a basic shape that's always available. I'll double click on it and I'll enter name, create schedule. Okay? I can also resize it. Maybe I'll make it smaller to make sure that everything fits on my diagram. And then I will drag it a little bit to align it better with that starting node. Okay. Now, how do you connect those shapes? There's a quick way, although I don't use it. You can click on one of those arrows to create a quick connection like this. So you click on it and you see there's so you hover your mouse over it you see this arrow, you click on it, and it will add the connector. Okay, so it's very quick if you learn how to use it. Also, when you see a green dot, it means it's a connector point. So if you connect it through connecting points, it will be permanently connected. So even when you reshuffle your diagram, the lines will still stay there, right? So that's the trick. Alternatively, I think most of the time I'm using this because I'm not happy how automatic connection is done. So I'm selecting this connector line, and then I'm hovering my mouse until I see that green point. Green point means it's ready to connect. That's a connecting point. So I click on it, and then I drag it here until I see another green point, which means it's a connecting point. You see there are multiple connecting points. You can drop it somewhere else, depending on how your diagram is laid out. Okay? So it's done. As you can see, because you connected through those green points, now if you resize something, you see the line follows it. Okay? There are some options here. You can make the connecting line straight, or you can make it orthogonal with elbows, right? So so look, when I click on this line and I make it straight, it will not create any elbows. It will follow it like this. But I want it to have elbows. So let's say I click here. Okay, so create schedule. Then what I'll do, I'll quickly copy, Control-C. I'll click here, I'll copy, and then I'll press Control-V to create a quick copy of this process. Send schedule. So we quickly connect it like this. And then let's say we have parents receiving that schedule. So I'll copy it really quick. I drag it here, and I'll double click to change the text. Receive schedule. Now for connecting this, I will use this line. So again, I drag here, and then I connect it here. When I see green dot, I drop it. So now we have this connection line. Again, you can change it by making it a straight connector. Or, alternatively, what you can do, use a connector instead, like an elbow connector, right? And then you can have ending options. So, for example, you can remove it, none. So now it's like a simple without lines. If you want to change where the line appears, then use this one. Okay? So you can also do it through this connector tool. But in my case, it's going to be on this end. Okay, receive schedule. Okay, so what else is there? Then let's say after that we have a decision diamond. You can easily find it either in general shapes or here under UML. So it's the same shape, right? So let's say it's something that happens on the side of the band lead. Changes. So here I will connect so that looks approximately right. If there are changes, then update the calendar. So I'll copy this process activity quickly here. And then I will add text, just like we have here in this diagram, yes or no, right? So to add text, just go to this tool, which is text. So it's already here. So you put it somewhere over line here, and you specify it as yes. Okay. What else? There is a data store symbol if you want to add it somewhere under UML. Yeah, so here it looks like a data store symbol. So just use a rectangle. I mean, use a square if you want to represent the data store. If you want to use an object like for email, then use a square like this. You can resize it, or just use something that has 90-degree angles, right? You can resize it to make it look like a square. Okay. Also, if you want to add that forking symbol, it's right here. You can resize it. Okay, so you can add lines here. For some reason I cannot select it. I'm not sure it's here. Oh, I don't know why. I'll just copy this one. So you see I'm connecting here. I'm not sure why I cannot edit here. Maybe something happening with my mouse. So I'll just copy this arrow from here. So you can have another line, then you can have a join, right? Expansion region that I'm not sure where is that. X. For some reason I cannot find it. Is it expansion or extension region? So let's see if I can find it here. Oh, here it is. Expansion. Yeah, it's called expansion. Right? By the way, it looks different from your textbook, and the actual textbook does mention that they have a simplified version of that symbol, right? But nevertheless, here it is. If you want to add it, by the way, you can right-click and just send it backward if you want it to be at the back of the diagram, just like you do in Microsoft Word, right? So you right-click to back. So now it's behind your diagram. Okay. What else do you need? I think the time symbol is here. Okay. So now you know the principle, so you'll be able to find those elements if you're looking for them, right? The final thing I'll show you, once you're done with your diagram, then go to file. Well, first of all, don't forget to save it somewhere. I'm talking about that XML file. But ultimately, you need to insert it into your Word file, right? Just like I did. This is what you do. You go to File, and then select Export As. Most of the time it's PNG, so select as PNG. If you want to have advanced options, like for example, if you want to have a very detailed diagram, you need to understand that if you compress it into like a Word figure, it will be hard for me to see unless it's a high resolution image. If it's a high resolution image, I can always blow it up on the screen and look at little details, right? So if you want to experiment with resolution, so here's your chance. You can add additional pixels for width. If it's like a small diagram, then you can use standard resolution. You go to File, Export as PNG. So it asks you for some options. Do you want to be transparent? Include a copy of my diagram. So you export it, and it asks you where. So you can just download it or save it to device. If you press download it will just download it in your downloads folder, right? So this is your diagram. I will drag it here. So I'll just take it here and I'll put it into this folder. So this is your PNG file. Okay, I made transparent background, that's why. So maybe uncheck it so it's white. And then while in Word, you go to Insert, Pictures, and then you download whatever picture you want to insert. So here's your diagram being inserted. Okay? All right, so that's how you do it. So you have example, you have the template, so please start working on it. Feel free to send me an email if you have any questions, if you'd like to brainstorm something. So for now, the due date is Monday, right? This is when this assignment is due, okay? All right, well, thank you very much, and I wish you a great weekend, and I hope to see you next class. We're gonna start covering chapter 3.